All right. Nico, we're going to give this another try. I thought while we're in lockdown or whatever you want to call it, I'd reach out to some of the Top Rope guys and check in with them to see how they're doing. Maybe interview them a little just to give some content out to the fans of Top Rope Promotions. Hopefully we'll be back doing our thing by the end of summer, but who knows at this rate. So, Nico, how have you been doing in this quarantine dream?
The quarantine dream has been something else, you know. I wake up, I work out, and then I have to play dad for the rest of the day, chasing the kids around as they're doing schoolwork from home. And in between their meetings, I wrestle my son down to the ground. So I get some sort of wrestling in.
Yeah, there you go. So you good. So you're at home all day. You're not working right now.
I just started working from home about 2 weeks ago. So I work at a local YMCA, and so we're just trying to get that ready to go and open back up. And you know, we have a big senior citizen population that goes to the Y I work at.
Right.
So we're just trying to make sure it's going to be healthy and safe for all of them for the most part.
Of course.
So, I mean, we'll see. I don't know. Well, in a couple of weeks, I think they're trying to target to open, but who knows?
Now, some of the fans might not know this, but about 6 months ago, you had a little baby girl.
I did.
So how is she?
Little baby Aubrey. She's great. I think that's the best thing about this quarantine is I got to be home with her. The day she was born, like, I had to go to work the next day. Like, so to be home with her and watch her grow is pretty wild. Babies are wild. But she sits on her own now. She rolls over. She just started eating food. Her favorite food is avocados. I mean, it's great. I love it. I love being a dad.
Great. Very good. So before this quarantine hit, your last match was it Brad Hollister?
I think so. Yes, it was. It was Brad. It was Brad.
March 6th in Brockton.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know you were really looking forward to that match. Did it live up to your expectations?
Oh, for sure. Brad and I hadn't wrestled a singles match in like 3 or 4 years. So I was very excited going into it, and he was very excited too and nervous because that was his first match back from his knee injury. And it was great. You know, I think it lived up to the expectations. Do you think it lived up to the expectations?
I was happy with it.
That's such a Ryan Drew response.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I think what I liked about it, I think I liked the entire event. What I liked about it was the only match on the card that was that type of match. And
yeah.
So if you have a match with 7 or 8 matches that all provide the same thing, it gets very boring. But I think I don't remember the rest of the show off the top of my head, but certainly there were no 2 other guys on the show that should have had the match, the indie style match that you guys had. And I was happy that you were able to do that because you don't wrestle a lot of guys that wrestle that style. Whereas Brad does kind of wrestle that style quite a bit at NEW. So it was good to see that you could keep up with that, I guess.
Yep. For sure. I think it was like a test for myself, you know?
Right.
You know, like you said, I don't really wrestle that style. But to go out there and have a match like we did and keep that up and that pace, I think showed that I can wrestle that style, you know?
Right. So you give yourself a passing grade.
I do. Do you give me a passing grade, though? Because that's what counts. All right, I'll take that.
Yeah. I'd say that was a solid B-.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's a good grade. So what goes into, say, I tell you, hey, yeah, you've been wanting to wrestle Brad for a while. I was able to get him to come down to work you. You were originally supposed to work Nick Steele. You were in a feud with Nick Steele.
Yep.
What do you think what goes through your mind when you realize you're going to be wrestling a guy like Brad Hollister, the caliber of guy like Brad Hollister? Certainly, you know, young, a sportsman, you know, like just you know, the guy that is all about the game. Like, how do you ready yourself for that?
I when you told me I was wrestling Brad, I just instantly started thinking about the match, like even weeks leading into it. I know a lot of guys out there say, oh, I don't think of the match that soon or whatever, but like I think of it like right away. I think of things that can happen during the match or what we can do. Lucky, like Brad and I think very similar. And I think we connect really well. I mean, I used to amateur wrestle and he was a big time amateur wrestler as well. And we both like sports. So I feel like going into it, like I felt fine. I wasn't like, oh crap, you know, when I wrestled Nick Steele and he broke my nose,
Right.
you know, it's like two different things, you know, like, oh God, I hope I don't re-break my nose, which happened.
Right.
But I was just, you know, kept my head in the game, and it was a great night. I really enjoyed that night. I really enjoyed that match. It was really good for both of us. You know, he, you know, pulled me aside after. I was like, you know, like, thank you. You know, I needed that for my own confidence. This is my first big match back from my knee.
Right.
And you made me realize I'm good. I can go. So
yeah.
And for myself, like I said, I can do that indie style, which was good for me too. So
Good. So looking back on, you know, as I've known you obviously for a long time now, about 4 or 5 years. I know one of your favorite matches was with Chuck O'Neil last year at Summer Showdown, and I see that you have the Top Rope Promotions Heavyweight Championship, modeling it for us, like Vanna White. What did it mean to you to win that title Summer Showdown, to do it with one of your friends, Chuck O'Neil, to have Matt Taven in the ring as a special guest referee, and to have Ricky Steamboat, who is world-renowned for his wrestling skill, former multi-time NWA heavyweight champion, to present the belt to you? Can you go back to that day? What were you feeling? Were you a bundle of nerves? We'd love to hear from you.
I always get nervous before I wrestle. But that day especially, you know, Summer Showdown, you know, is the biggest event that we have. It draws really well, and going into it, I was, you know, already nervous because it's a big stadium show. There's gonna be a lot of people there, and then you have Ricky Steamboat walking around, and you kind of got like take us like, wow, like I'm sitting here with Ricky Steamboat in the same locker room. Here comes Matt Taven, Ring of Honor world champion at the time, you know, and it's crazy. And to win that title that night was, it meant a lot because it's Top Rope's my home promotion. You know, I trained there, and to get that opportunity to win the belt is big to me, because I remember going to a Top Rope show and Nick Steele was the champion before I started training and wrestling at all. And just it's kind of funny that, like, fast forward and now I'm the Top Rope heavyweight champion. I never would have thought that back then. And it made it extra special too, because that was the first Summer Showdown that my kids were there for. They had never gone to one. So, you know, to see, you know, Ricky Steamboat come out and present me the title, and like they were waving, and, you know, my daughter was giving me hearts. And, you know, after we got up and I walked my daughter and we walked across the dugout and everyone was cheering, it was a special moment I'll never forget. You know, I have pictures from it. Like, at the time though, she was very nervous. I was holding her.
Yeah.
She was like, put me down. I'm so embarrassed. I was like, I don't know why you're embarrassed. I'm running around in a Speedo. At least you have clothes on. But it was a great night.
What I remember most about that match, well, what I liked about the match, we kind of planned in advance for you and Chuck to meet at Summer Showdown. That was kind of the idea long term. And while that is what happened, there were some bumps in the road. But ultimately, it came out kind of the way I thought it would have. What I liked about the match, it was a good match. You guys worked the arm, was the reaction from the crowd. they really were super into that match, really wanted you to win. What I liked about it was the connection. There does seem to be a genuine connection between you and the crowd, which is what wrestling is all about, is a genuine connection. Do you feel that same way? Did you feel that same way?
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's something I really pride myself on, is like having that connection. I think especially on the independent level, guys get too caught up in that just like flippy, let me do something really cool, like whatever, like I don't know, like I can't explain it. Like people just get so caught up in themselves and not in that moment, into that moment, and then connect with the crowd, and like that whole build into it. It was just like when I made the challenge for it, and I said, you know, I'm not challenging Chuck. We are all challenging Chuck O'Neil. You know, they really bought in, and they were behind me the entire night leading into Summer Showdown. And that, you know, 1, 2, 3, and they erupted.
Yeah.
And they all, like, everyone gave me hugs and, you know, like high fives and cheering me. And like people were messaging me for days after. You know, that connection sometimes gets, I feel like, lost, especially at the independent level.
Right.
Which is crazy to think, because independence is so an intimate environment.
Yeah, I think maybe part of that could be the, you know, a lot of people when they first start out, they're young, so they're more markish about the move, and they want to be cool like the people they see on TV, not realizing that the intimacy of the independence allows you to make a bigger connection. And reach out to these people in a way that the WWE can't. And I think it is kind of corny when you say it, but it's true. You know, as a promoter, and I know I've talked to Steve Ricard about this, there's nothing more satisfying than watching the same people that you saw come in to the show and not really realize what they're getting into, to leave that night as a family with smiles on their faces, and really enjoying the show. And I'd imagine as a wrestler, those people that don't pay attention to that are really missing out. Whereas, you know, Teddy's another one who really does seem to genuinely connect with the crowd, and the crowd responds and realizes, like, you know, it's about the moment and that connection and making that night for those kids, even if it's only 1 or 2 kids, and in general, it's about making that night for them, and how awesome it really is.
It really is. I think you're right. Like, I think it's people do get markish, and you forget, like, you want to do something really cool and look cool for themselves, but like, I mean, the 5-year-old kid doesn't care if you do a Canadian destroyer,
right?
You know, you know. I mean, like, and his dad, who got dragged to the show, probably doesn't care you did a Canadian destroyer either. You know,
I shared this story with you a couple months ago when it happened. So, you know, as you know, I work with individuals who are developmentally disabled, and they go to a few of the matches. And one of the guys that we work with went, and you made his night by
awesome.
He wanted a picture, and you know, all night he wasn't really smiling. He was taking it in, and he took a picture with you, and he was smiling. And it really hit home to me that, you know, everybody that comes to these shows, whether adults, teenagers, kids, whoever they are, that opportunity to make a connection with them and make, you know, even if it's just for one night, make them happy. It really is a big responsibility, but something we should relish in and not forget.
Oh, for sure. I definitely agree. There's no better feeling, you know. Yeah. Like, we come out, and I think as wrestlers in general, we don't. How do I say it? Like, we come out and like everyone gives you high fives, and like everyone's just like, oh yeah. A lot of wrestlers, but like that moment, like those high fives, like those fans are genuinely like into you, you know, right. And that connection, and like I don't know, like what I like to do sometimes when I go around, you know, I see like a kid and I have my dog tag on, like I take it off and give it to him. Like, I don't know, you know, that makes that kid his night, you know,
Right.
just maybe that one little thing, you know, or I don't know. I
Yeah.
want to make everyone happy.
That little dog tag, that picture, that handshake, you just
Yeah.
making a little moment for them. People reach out on Facebook. They want you to say happy birthday to them.
Yeah.
You know, both of my nephews were fans of yours, fans of Teddy, Brandon Webb, and just that little connection,
Goes a long way.
it goes a long way. So I didn't realize we were going to get so sensitive.
And we got real deep.
But it is really cool, and it is something that I think we forget a lot of times.
I think a lot of people do. Yeah.
And when we stop and give ourselves a moment, and go, you know what? I know it's kind of what we do sometimes can seem kind of silly, and you know, when I talk to maybe my family about it, and they're like, "You're still doing that wrestling thing?" And yeah, and kind of, but you know, look at the big picture. It is kind of cool that you're able to reach people on that level.
For sure.
So we were talking about you and Chuck, and you guys had that match. I know afterwards you guys got some feedback from Matt Taven, who was the Ring of Honor champion at the time, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who you cannot ask for a better judge of a match. What did they both have to say to you? What were their reactions to the match?
Well, like I went up to Taven, I was like, you know, like I knew he was going to watch the match. He was the special guest ref, so I knew he would give us some sort of feedback. You know, I did ask Ricky, like, can you watch the match? And you know, a lot of those big names will be like, yeah. You know, like they kind of, unfortunately, some of them like they're just like, yep, whatever. But like Ricky came out, stood there for the entire, I don't know how long the match was, 20, 25 minutes. There's a picture. I have a picture of it. I'm just sitting there, in depth into the match. And, you know, after the match, we didn't have to ask for feedback. He came up and gave us feedback. And, you know, Taven as well, he came right up and gave us the feedback, you know, like about, you know, Steamboat said, a lot of people ask me to watch the matches on this level. And I always tell them, go out there and give me a story. And none of them ever do, because they get markers for the moves, like we were saying. He goes, that was the first match in a very long time that I've seen that had a story. And he was like, yeah, it was phenomenal. It was great. And he sat and he talked with us for, I don't even know, 25, 30 minutes. I have that picture too of him talking to me and Chuck, which is like a moment I'll never forget. You know, I'm a big Ricky Steamboat fan. And I made sure I did the Ricky Steamboat headlock in that match. But he didn't even notice. That was the one thing I was bummed about.
What happened at the end when Ricky Steamboat raised your hand?
So the whole night, you know, Chuck's finish, you know, he's black belt legit, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, I felt sick.
Me too. My arm was black and blue for about 4 or 5 weeks after that. Is an arm bar, you know, so the whole night he's on my arm, kicking the living hell out of my arm. And, you know, I wasn't even thinking, like, but, you know, like, I'm selling the arm. Ricky comes out. He gives the whole, you know, presentation and gives me the belt and goes to raise my arm, but he grabs my left arm that Chuck's been, like, all over all night, and he goes to lift it. And, you know, Taven did it for
Nico,
but I didn't know.
Nico,
Yeah.
I lost you for a second.
No.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. It stayed still for a second. Can you just kind of rewind just a little to Chuck was working your arm?
Oh man, Chuck was working my arm, and Ricky gives me the belt, and he goes to raise my arm up, and as he goes to raise it, I stop him and I go, wrong arm, and I just like instantly sunk, and I was like, oh my God, I just told Ricky Steamboat, one of the greatest wrestlers ever, don't lift wrong arm. And so after the match, he's giving us the feedback, and then he turns and says, oh, and this bad word, I go to raise his arm, and he tells me wrong arm. That's a good man. He knows what he's doing. And I just like, oh, He's like, you kill the heat if you do that. He's like, you're smart. And you protect him and yourself. And I just remember just thinking, like, when he turned, he was like, you mother. And I was like, oh God, I'm done. But it was great. Great moment. I can't believe I told Ricky Steamboat what to do.
2 years ago now, probably like 2010, me and Teddy wrestled Tito Santana and Johnny Angel. And in the match, Tito's, we went over the match and Tito said, okay, hot tag, whatever. I give Teddy the fucking flying burrito. 1, 2, come break it up. I said, okay. And then they were going to finish it off with the figure 4. Well, what happened during the match was after, he makes the hot tag, and before he gives Teddy the flying forearm, he throws me over the top rope and I take the bump. So I got to sell it, right? So he gives Teddy the flying burrito, and Teddy had to get up at 2. So now Tito's fucking pissed because Teddy had to get up after his. So, he's doing it after, and I guess he was like, what the fuck? Where's your partner? Blah, 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 blah. I'm downstairs. Teddy's like, Tito's man. I was like, well, I mean, he threw me out of the ring. Like, what? I don't know what he wanted me to do. He's like, Tito's match. And I'm like, fuck. Because, sometimes with stars, I have a tendency not to treat them like stars. Like, in my head, they want to be treated like regular people. So I go, like, to the extreme and just treat them like dickheads. Fuck this guy. I'm gonna get dressed and leave. And as on my way out, I run into Tito. So I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry about that. And he's like, oh no, it was my fault. I threw you over the top. No problem. And I was like, motherfucker, here I am thinking Tito's gonna rip me into one. But he realized afterwards that he had thrown me over the top rope.
Was he happy you sold it?
He didn't say whether or not. He just realized that he threw me over the top and that it was his fault. So that's fine. I was just cool that, okay, like he recognized that I'm not a shit.
Yeah.
So we talk about Steamboat, we talk about Chuck, we talk about Taven. The question is, why are you not wrestling for Northeast Wrestling?
Why am I not wrestling?
You wrestled Chuck. You wrestled Brad. Taven has seen your shit. Why are you not wrestling for? Like, to me, it's a foregone conclusion. You should be there. You're one of the top guys in New England at the time. You can go with those, Hollister, Chuck, Casanova, JT Dunn. What's missing? Why are you not there?
This emoji. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just a right place, right time. I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that's one of my big goals once this pandemic's back is to get there.
You've wrestled there before.
I have wrestled there before.
But you
multiple times.
Impress the powers that be.
No, I did, and I got invited back, and then the show got canceled, and then like, boom, like I just hadn't heard anything. They had me come in and do a Rumble once, and I wrestled Chuck once, and then I haven't heard from him. So I just recently did the tryout and seminar for them, and I felt like it went very well. They seemed like they liked me. I mean, they've seen me before. I went down and I did more of a heel kind of Nico Silva, which is something I don't really do. I also think a lot of times I just get pigeonholed as John Cena, and people don't want to see John Cena.
Hey, everybody. Nico Silva's calling himself John Cena.
No, but you know what I mean.
On Facebook.
You know what I mean. I just get pigeonholed as that baby face, white meat baby face, and some people aren't into that. People want to be the cool heel or the cool, Randy Orton face.
John Cena has a personality. I don't think.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. This is what I hear. That's what's keeping you back.
Well, I went down as a heel and I had more personality. I know that's the rumor. He doesn't have a lot of personality, which I just think that's crap. That's just me though. But I went down to the tryout. I paid to do the tryout. just to show them like, hey, listen, I want to be here. Like I want to wrestle at Northeast Wrestling. And I went in there and did a heel and worked heel the whole day. I had a match with Doug Love, or Love Doug. What's his name? Love Doug. And, I thought it went very well. All the drills I did were very well. And they seemed to enjoy it. And I had planned on making the drive down and hanging out at one of their shows. And then the world shut down.
Yeah.
So
word on the street is that, a couple of things, that Nico Silva doesn't have much of a personality, which might have been true. I think one of the things is, like, you've only been around 4 years. Like,
I think a lot of people forget that.
In the grand scheme of things, you are kind of just now finding yourself. I mean, for a lot of guys, it takes quite a few years. It took Vinny 10 years, I think sometimes people forget that. But so you've only been around 4 years. I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, I was going to say, so a couple of the complaints I heard, or criticisms, is that maybe you don't have enough personality. It's not genuine, and you come off sometimes as a bitch.
I think that, well, all right. So the personality thing, I think you touched on it. I think a lot of people, I'm just feeling good, like over the last year and a half. Am I frozen?
No.
Oh, all right. Over the last year and a half or so, I really feel like I'm coming.
When I watch you in a match, it looks like you're frozen. Like,
What?
that's the level of charisma you have. The crowd's going, is this guy frozen?
That's not true. You just complimented me on how the crowd went crazy.
I know.
No. I think a lot of people forget I've only 4 years in, those guys down in Northeast, JT's been around forever. Casanova's 6 years, 7 years in. Brad's been wrestling since he was like 16. I think a lot of people forget that. And people think I'm a bitch. I'm very my face at rest is terrible. And I'm a very quiet guy. I don't really, talk to, I talk, but I'm a very quiet, laid back person. I think unfortunately in wrestling, if you're not talkative, you are just not cool.
Well, that's not true. If you're too talkative, you're a fucking
asshole. You're a heater. You're a heater, yeah.
If you don't talk enough, you're an asshole.
You're a heater, yeah. So I got to find that middle ground and just start being friends with everybody. But can't be friends with everybody. Wrestling has a lot of weird rules.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules in wrestling.
And there's no rules.
There's no rules, and there's a lot of rules. And the rules, depending on who you're around. And
God, the worst.
You did a couple of Ring of Honor seminars. The first one, I believe, was the one I went down with you, because I was trying to hobnob with the trainers.
Yeah.
And then you went down a second time without me. What compare the two? Were they similar? What did you learn? What did you take away? What were those experiences like?
So the first one I went down, and it went really well for the fact that I was only a year in or so. I felt like it went really well, and I took a lot away from it. From Christopher Daniels was there, who was awesome. I could listen to that guy talk about wrestling for hours. He was awesome. And then the second one I did about, I want to say, was that last year?
Might have been.
About last year. So we're talking like a year and a half in between or so. I went down by myself. I didn't know anybody who was going. And it was at the new dojo they had. And I kind of went in thinking I was going to do better than I did the last time.
Of course.
And I didn't do better. I had a big piece of humble pie that day. I didn't do well. I did well the final day, but the first day was so bad that I called you and I wanted to leave.
Yep.
It was that bad. I felt like I was just like, why am I here? Like, this is pointless. I really was down on wrestling. And, you know, you talked me off the ledge. But after I got off the phone, I was like, no, I'm just going home. Just want to go home. And I called my wife that night, and we just talked. And she talked me off the ledge, too. And then finally, woke up next day, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go in with a great attitude.
Right.
And just like, you know what, yesterday was yesterday. Let's see what happens today. And we had a match that ended up on Future of Honor. And, you know, they said that, hey, this is the best you looked all day. I mean, the whole weekend. Today was great. So, you know, I definitely went in with a bigger, I don't want to say a big head, but I definitely did with a big head. I mean, I already have a large head, so it was even larger. And it was humbling experience.
Yeah. Who humbled you?
Bubba Ray Dudley and QT Marshall. You know, QT Marshall called me out for having this resting bitch face, but didn't say I had resting bitch face, just thought I had an attitude, which is like, everyone thinks that for some odd reason, but I don't. I definitely got upset during my match and probably wore it on my face. I hold my matches to a very high standard, even the little things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that first day I had to do an intergender match and I wasn't really comfortable with it. Then the next match I did that day, something happened and I was just like over it. And he called me out in front of everybody and I was like, well, that's that. I hate wrestling.
I you know, I get it. I get why he called you out. But sometimes I feel like, especially guys like him who have toiled away on the indies for such a long time, they've been in your position. They've been in the position where something doesn't go right in the match, and they've worn it on their face, and they've gotten chewed out for it. I wish sometimes there was a little more sensitivity to things like that. Like, hey, bro, you know, I get it. I've been in your position before, but you know, you can't wear it on your face, rather than chewing people out. Sometimes I just feel like that's done for show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at a lot of seminars in general, there are a lot of people there who talk to talk. And I'm not saying that was QT Marshall's role, because at the time he was his school's an affiliate of Ring of Honor at the time. So he was definitely not just trying to talk just to talk. I think what got me even more mad was after he chewed me out in front of everybody, including the executive producer, you know, everybody, the entire thing. He then pulled me aside and apologized for chewing me out and said it wasn't his intention. And in my head, I was like, well, what was the intention then? Like, I don't understand. Yeah. And he said, like, you know, but you know what was cool was the kid who he just won the Ring of Honor prospect tournament this year. I can't think of his name.
We were just talking about him. Brian Johnson.
No, not him. It was a different guy. Oh. He pulled me aside.
Sam
Lee. He was like, I don't know. But he pulled me aside and he was like, hey, dude, like, I was at this last year and the exact same thing happened to me. He was like, don't get down on it. Like, it'll get better. And you know what? He won the Ring of Honor prospect tournament. So,
right.
You know, at the time, I hated wrestling and I wanted to come home. But when I look back on it, it was a humbling experience. And I definitely learned about communication skills in the wrestling world.
Were there any notable people in your Ring of Honor, both camps?
Brian Johnson was there. But this is the second one I'm thinking of right now. Brian Johnson was there. A lot of those guys who were in that prospect tournament were there. Yeah. Ken Dixon, Brian Johnson, Clutch Adams. He's still wrestling, I think.
I don't know if he still wrestles, but I know who he is.
Yeah. The first Ring of Honor camp I had was very, very stacked. There was a Flip Gordon, MJF, Cody Vance, who's now like in the Dark Order in AEW. He wears a mask, which is wild to me because he's like a good-looking guy, but he wears a mask now.
Yep.
Who else?
Josh.
Josh Briggs. Yeah, I forgot. Josh Briggs was there. Cam
yep.
was there. I said Flip.
Was LSG there?
No,
No,
he
he
was
wasn't.
not there.
No.
No.
And I think
But
maybe
yeah.
Tim Hughes was there. Maybe that's who I'm thinking of. Because Bob
No,
was.
he would. No. Yes. You're right. Yeah. Someone else was there that there's like a decent name, a big name, or a name people would know. I just can't think of it. I don't know. It was a pretty packed one though. It was for sure.
Yeah.
Cody Van, I don't know. It was packed. But a lot of the things, like I said, like I got humbled, but like you ask any wrestler who's gone to those tryout camps, like you're not going to see for them to say, you are really good and like clap your hand, You're
Right.
going to get picked apart. Like that's the whole point of these tryout seminars is to see what's wrong with you,
Right.
Unfortunately, apparently my face is what's wrong with me.
Well, good thing they're just judging you from a physical perspective and not a mental perspective, because
Oh, yeah.
there's a hell of a lot wrong with me up here.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people.
I feel like one of the things, not necessarily that's wrong of honor, but that's certainly lacking over the last couple of years is the absence of Kevin Kelly. I feel when Kevin Kelly was at Ring of Honor, maybe through his affiliation with Bob, he really seemed to have a finger on the pulse of what was going on in New England and was able to be that connection. Now there seems, I don't know if it's because they concentrate more on the school or what it is, where they don't have that connection anymore. But there's a lot of guys in New England, and it's always been this way, that are just like chomping at the bit that could really do something on a national level, and they're just not getting those opportunities. When I say things like that, are there anybody besides you who, like, in your head should be right there at that level, like in Ring of Honor or getting the opportunities at Ring of Honor?
Yeah, I think Christian Casanova for sure. I don't know why he hasn't gotten more of an opportunity. I know he's got a chance to wrestle there. I definitely think he should get more of an opportunity. I would say Anthony Green, but he's at Evolve, so he's kind of already getting that national spotlight, as well as Josh Briggs as well. Big Bacon, Brad Hollister. I mean, he's a guy who tons of personality and can go in the ring. Excuse me, sorry. I think Channing Thomas for sure. He has a face that you just want to punch, but he knows it. But I think he's a hell of a worker in the ring, and he can go, and he needs more of an opportunity as well. Who else? See, now I get nervous with these questions because if I don't say certain people, then I'm a heater.
Right.
Bacon, Casanova. Am I missing people?
I don't know. It's your interview.
Can you name some people?
Off the top of my head, well, I think
JT Dunn.
Yeah, I think the people you named were fairly good people and people that would be at the top of anybody's list. I think Channing, I think he's still very young.
He's on his way.
Yes, he's definitely on his way. I think Brett's on his way. JT Dunn, it surprises me that he hadn't gotten an opportunity sooner. I'm not friends with JT. I've met him a few times. I've seen his stuff. I've been critical of his stuff, but it does surprise me, even to an extent, like Teddy, like it surprises me that these guys haven't gotten more opportunities. I know JT's gotten some opportunities.
Teddy, for sure, too. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I know that JT went to PWG. I'm sure there's a couple more that I'm missing again. So I'm just surprised it didn't go further.
He had a little run in Impact too.
Was it
TNA? Yeah, he had a little run in TNA. Like he did. He went down and did a couple.
Oh, okay. He had a couple matches at TNA.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a run, but I guess I've been surprised that they're. And I think he's Matt Magnum's age, so he's probably like 30. He's still got time, but I guess I'm surprised because he had some momentum there for a while.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
for sure.
be
Before I started wrestling, I knew who, like, and I got into the indies. He
yeah,
was like a big name a lot of people talked about in this
yeah.
area.
I think that
I think
Brad,
you that there's no connection in the New
yeah,
England area without Kevin Kelly, because that's one thing that I think back on. That first camp I did, Kevin Kelly was there, and he knew who I was, who Flip was, who Josh was. The guys in the New England area.
right.
Whereas the second time I went down, he's not there, and I feel like that was around the time where like Christopher Daniels and those guys were getting ready to leave Ring of Honor.
Yeah,
So I think there was a lot of no guidance. Like, I don't want to say no guidance, but there was a lot of.
yeah. It was essentially like a Monster Factory training center. Training.
Well, yeah, that was when they did the affiliate
Yeah,
dojos, and it felt like if you weren't an affiliate dojo, it was pretty rough.
right.
Who
right.
networking.
Yeah. Who on the New England scene today are you most looking forward to wrestling?
So we just talked about him. I do want to wrestle JT Dunn. I was supposed to wrestle JT Dunn, and he like tore his hamstring or something. I was supposed to wrestle him in Brockton,
Okay.
and he like tore his hamstring or something like that. He did something, and he had to call out of the show
Okay.
a week prior. So I would like to wrestle him. Another Northeast wrestling guy, but I would like to wrestle him, and I would like to wrestle TK O'Ryan.
Okay.
Because he was one of the first guys when I was at the school. He was there.
I don't know if he's wrestling anymore.
I don't know. I don't know.
He doesn't answer my text, so.
I don't know. I would like to wrestle him. So TK, if you ever watch this,
I see him on. I see him cooking on his girlfriend's Instagram post, but that's about it.
oh,
Yeah, she hit me up, right after Nick died, and she said something like, "Hey, why, reach out to TK?" And I do, but there's only so many times you can text somebody. You go, you know what? I'm gonna let him be and him do whatever he needs to do, and I'm always here, but I'm not gonna chase anybody.
yeah. If you could drag Magnum out of retirement,
You
I
wrestled.
wouldn't mind. I did, but I would like to wrestle him again. I don't know. Who else am I thinking of? I've wrestled AG. I want to wrestle Josh Briggs.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of other matches in New England. I hate when you put me on the spot for names.
Okay. I won't do that again. I've got another question.
You're such a liar. You're such a liar. You're definitely going to do it.
Even better question. Who do you absolutely not want to wrestle?
Who I don't want to wrestle?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Like if you saw on the lineup, Nico Silva versus who, would you go, oh, I'm fucking leaving. I'm
I don't know. Because a lot of times if I'm in that predicament, I'm like, I'm gonna take it as a challenge and get the best matches I possibly can out of this guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wrecking Ball?
No, because me and Wrecking Ball have had some really good matches.
Dexter Lou?
I wrestled Dexter Lou in a 4-way once, and which we went into it thinking it was going to be terrible, and it wasn't bad.
Jeremy
I
Larry?
sent you the match. Who?
Jeremy Larry?
I've wrestled him in a tag match before. I don't think he likes me.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Were you part of that group where I called him out on not paying people?
No, but that was when me, Jason, and Mike were venturing out, so I felt like I was just like guilty by association.
Right. So, I mean, it's obviously my fault. So if he doesn't like you, it's my fault.
I'll be okay.
I opened my big mouth. Typical.
Business. That's all it was.
Very, very typical of. So
that's old Ryan Drew. That was old Ryan Drew. You've turned a leaf.
Well, I try. Maybe this quarantine will be that like that change that I needed, like a sense of self-reflection. I've been able to like meditate.
No, you haven't.
Actually, I think the complete opposite. I'm going to come
Yeah.
back, balls of fury, just be like, "Wah!"
Yeah, that first training where someone messes up, do you guys even watch wrestling?
Yeah.
Like, why would he do that? What are you doing?
I'm like, back to quarantine. Let's say quarantine is over.
Yep.
Okay. In a perfect world, we all got our vaccinations. We all got our microchips. We all got all right. So now we're ready to wrestle again. Where does Nico go? What is in store for the Rhode Island Lion?
Well, the Rhode Island Lion's a fighting champion, so whoever wants to take a shot, take the shot. Just don't miss. Simple as that. I mean, I'm coming back with
What a boring answer.
No, it's not, because I'm coming back with a fire under my ass. Like like you said, you hit on all the things. Like all these people say all this, that, and that about me. No personality, resting bitch face, this, that, and the other. Like I'm gonna show everyone. I
think your best promos are when you start acting like a little more youthful.
Yeah.
Like, instead of being like, I'm coming, like, I don't know, when you that like 20
I know.
years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
College kid. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm going.
Can't be Mufasa. You got to be young Simba.
Young Simba with a little chip on the shoulder and a little swag behind him.
Yeah, like you got something to prove.
I do. I'm tired of people saying these things.
Ska and the Three Hyenas.
That's me. Because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of. I think people respect me as a wrestler, and I think a lot of people pass over me because of this, that, and the other. My personality, this face.
Yeah.
That I've been so blessed with. But I don't know anybody who's ever said anything bad about my matches. If someone's saying, hey, he doesn't have a lot of personality, okay, but if people run around saying I'm unsafe, no.
Yeah.
And do I know what I'm doing? Yeah.
Did you break Chuck's leg?
Did I break Chuck's leg? No, I don't know. I think it was the casket that fell in the training room. Yeah. I don't know. Yes, I broke Chuck's leg.
That was great. Huh?
Yeah, that was the first time I really met Slyck Dudley. And what a wild. I think, like, Chuck broke his leg, and that was, like, such a crazy thing that I think we forgot everything leading into that was also just as crazy. Just, like, that's, like, the one thing that sticks out. But, like, Spike was on fire that night.
Yeah,
he was going crazy. And I always think we forget about that when we talk about Chuck breaking his leg.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was such a big thing. Like, Steve's pulling out this 1920s, Army stretcher and taking the bottom rope off.
And like
Spike's asking me what's the worst injury I've had.
The stretcher looked like it belonged on the set of the TV series MASH.
Yes, it did.
Like, where's Hawkeye?
And then I'm thinking to myself, like, who's gonna carry Chuck down on like?
Right.
Like, I'm looking around. I'm like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what a wild night.
So Spike was there with Chuck, and like he was definitely trying. Well, we were all there, but he was definitely trying to like calm the situation.
Yeah.
And so, we're trying to calm the situation. We get Chuck out of there. And then 2 months later, he sees you at Summer Showdown. You were the one that broke your leg.
Yeah, I come up to him. I'm like, hey, Spike, how's it going? And he was like, hey, what's going on? And he looks down at me and he goes, how's the leg doing? I'm like, so then I look at my leg and I'm like, oh, it's fine. It could be worse. It could be like Chuck. And I pointed over at Chuck, and then he looked at Chuck, and they looked at me, and they looked at Chuck, and then I think he connected, but we kind of just like, it was like an unspoken thing, like, oh, I messed up. And he's like, oh yeah, that's tough. But then later that night, I was in a cage match, and he's screaming at me, "This isn't the UFC, boy. This is professional wrestling." And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not Chuck. I'm not Chuck.
And then, so he had that a few times. I think it was last year, maybe a year and a half ago. You're wrestling at the PAL. Spike happens to be there. The local news guy from Newport gets wind that he's going to.
Oh yeah.
And so I say, hey, let's get Spike involved. He's a name, like it'll be good for the article, right? And what happened with that?
So the guy goes up to him and he just starts talking to him, and Spike's just talking, right? Like if you ever met Spike, like he'll just talk.
Yeah.
Like, he's just going, talking about Nico and he's like, yeah, this, that, and the other, and he's been around for a while, and the reporter's like, he told me he's only been around for like 3-4 years, and he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's like, Nico, and he's like, Nico. Oh, I thought you meant this other guy I know named Nico who used to wrestle. And the guy's like, he's writing everything Spike's saying down. He's like, so all this has nothing to do with Nico? He's like, yeah. Nico, yeah, he's good. He'll be there. He'll be like, he just like, Spike felt so dumb, but just try to like no sell it the whole time. Guy's like, okay. That I'll never forget that. The reporter was like, all right. That was... He like never reports on wrestling. So to go to a first wrestling show, he's like, what the hell?
Well, if you're gonna go to your first wrestling show, the PAL is definitely the place to do it. Like,
oh, for sure.
Sometimes I've wrestled in, so many different places. I'd be embarrassed to have any of my friends or family come. But the one place I would never be embarrassed for them come is the PAL, because it's such a small, intimate, good, professional venue that I feel, I don't know. To me, it's like just a smaller wrestling arena,
When I first, is before I started training, and I started going to indie shows, and I went to the PAL, it was my first independent show ever. And I was like, this is awesome, right? Yeah. And then I go again, and it was Brickhouse Baker's retirement match where he's getting hung on the balcony. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, independence is crazy. And then I went to another one, and I got in the room. I'm like, this is weird. This is just a basketball court. Like, I thought every independent wrestling organization had a hall like the PAL.
Yeah.
And then now that I'm wrestling, now I realize how special the PAL is.
Right. I remember.
I've wrestled at some weird places too.
For me, it's so funny to say, but on the indies, it is a luxury to have a shower afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that's the best.
I'm
so upset we don't do that YMCA show anymore.
I know. It's as little as that. Hey, we're wrestling at the Braintree High School. You're like, yes, a shower.
Yeah, I always think that. I think that's why I like the stadium show too, because after I could just shower and then I get home at 2-3 in the morning and I just can go right to sleep. Right. I think that all the time. I'm like, oh, stadium show tonight. The shower there. Let me get my flip flops and my soap.
Usually we're downstairs in the basement. We got to put our gear on the furnace. Watch out for the leaky pipes.
Yeah, that's steaming water coming out of it. Oh man! One time I wrestled in a parking lot behind a restaurant.
Oh really? Oh, was I at PvP?
Yes, it was at PvP.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, this is independent wrestling right here. This is wild. And the change, we'd go in the kitchen in the restaurant.
Did you ever wrestle at Outdoor World?
No.
What about the campground in Mansfield?
I've never done a campground show.
So we used to wrestle at this campground called Outdoor World. A lot of fun. They only paid a little bit of money for the show, just enough to rent the ring and the truck and everything. So it was a free show. So everybody that went knew what they were getting into. But Steve, bless his heart, would get a camper, and afterwards everybody would go buy the camper. He'd supply food and beers and stuff. But one year, so it was always a good time, always a great time. Well, one year they had one more show and it got canceled because of rain. So the makeup date was Columbus Day weekend. And so that was the only way. We was already paid for, so we had to go. It started raining again. And they were like, well, we'll still have the show. They had the show underneath this canopy, very small canopy that, like, legit, like if I stood up in the ring, the ceiling was right there. Like legit right there. But that's not it. There was a beam a big beam that ran through the ring. So if you ran the ropes, you had to duck under the beam.
Oh my God.
And back up. And we had 5 matches, and I swear 4 out of the 5 matches ended because somebody hit the beam.
Oh my God.
That was
They were
in the
probably all thinking like, this will be different. What if I hit the beam? That would be it.
Yes. Meanwhile, all 4,
Everyone's like, oh, wait a minute.
But Nico, it's 8:00. I've got to run. But I'd like to do this again, maybe catch up. We barely scratched the surface. We still got to talk about your beginnings, the lockup, your Jerry Briscoe seminar, all things wrestling. Thanks for finally making some time to sit here with me and do that. And I'll post this and I'll get some feedback, and maybe we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. It was lovely.
All right. I'll tell the family I said hello, and we'll talk again soon.
Michaela, Ryan says hello. It's finishing right now. Don't worry. She says hi. She says hi.
Bye.
Bye.